Next week, we'll be discussing Escape from Planet of the Apes from 1971, the third movie in the Planet of the Apes saga. Tom, how was your watch?
I watched these three movies kind of back to back to back. I've seen, because we did it for the show, the first Planet of the Apes, and I've seen the remake with James Franco and Caesar. And I actually even see the Tim Burton film too, with Marky Mark, having to go to the Lincoln Memorial to save the world. But this is kind of my first visit into the actual larger lore of the Planet of the Apes. And boy, were the three movies are sort of the last two movies are they're somewhat qualitatively worse than the first one. The first one had some redeeming qualities to it, but these last two, the third one is not as bad as the second. The second one is really awful. But the third one, it's a little rough. I did not continue on to part four and five. I just quickly read the Wikipedia summary and assumed that that was good enough. I don't have to see John Huston reduced to an orangutan in order to do this podcast. I
That's
think
the
I
fifth movie, audience. If
yes.
you're
It's what is the fifth movie called?
Battle for Planet of the Apes,
Battle for
and
Planet of the
it
Apes.
competes with the second one for being the worst. So
Oh, okay, fair enough. So yeah, it was that. I will say so. Something positive to say about it. I really like Kim Hunter in all of these movies. Part of the problem with the second movie is she's just not in it a lot, and I think she's actually quite charming in the first one, and I think she's very charming in this, despite the questionable outfit choices she was forced to make. Pat, what did you think?
So I had never seen any of them before. My only knowledge of them is the Simpsons episode, the which I think is one of the greatest Simpsons episodes ever. So I did know, unfortunately, how it ended because, oh my God, I was wrong. It was Earth all
All
along.
along.
So I did know how it ended. Um, but I watched it actually with my wife, who did not know how it ended. So she was actually mildly surprised when she got to the end of it. And then we watched the second one, which I agree with Tom. That one's pretty qualitatively rough. And then we watched the third one. So we basically watched them all pretty much back to back over like 2 or 3 days. So we got a very solid dose of Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I'll agree with Tom. It's definitely better than the second one. But I think there's my favorite moment is when they have the breakfast at Tiffany's moments where they're like going around the city getting
yes.
Anyway, that was my experience with it. So, Margaret, what was your experience with it?
So, uh, yeah, I grew up watching the original Planet of the Apes, saw it several times as a kid, was very excited when the Tim Burton film came out, saw it on opening day.
Wow.
That was a cool part of my childhood. But the later ones, so the sequels to Planet of the Apes, the original series, didn't see very much. So it really was like watching it for the first time. The Escape from Planet of the Apes. I knew they were gonna end up at the circus. Like I could remember things like that. I knew that like the child was gonna be important for the next films. But it's almost like, I don't know, a kid who grows up in a semi-religious family but doesn't read the Bible. Like you know what happened, but you couldn't like actually place it all together. So I had that kind of mindset. Not to say that Planet of the Apes was the Bible in my house, but it was something that came up. I found it to be a lot of fun. It actually made me sad that I never taught Planet of the Apes in my English classes because I almost did. I thought about it a lot, and when I was watching it, I just kept thinking like, this is such a teachable movie. I wish I had made my students watch this. KJ, how was your watch?
I was super excited to do this movie, audience. This is my favorite movie in the Planet of the Apes series, the first five movies. And watching it again, I enjoyed every minute of it. To prepare for this episode, I watched the cartoon show that had two seasons, Return to Planet of the Apes. And that was pretty terrible. I don't recommend watching that. I read the book. Have you guys read the book at all? So, well, we'll get into it in the episode, but there's a lot more similarities in the third movie with the book than the first movie. And next week, we're going to talk a lot about inverting the original. But while watching it this time, I put it on the big screen in the living room because I was pretty excited. My wife fell asleep, I'm pretty sure. But my daughter kind of walked into the room when they were, well, let's say they get captured into a cage and they're doing some testing. And I think she fell in love with the movie too because she watched the whole thing and was laughing. So there you go. 16-year-olds, maybe Escape from Planet of the Apes is a thumbs up from them. So, also, audience, if you want to go back and listen to our Planet of the Apes episodes, some of our questions might be inverts of those questions. It could help you get ready for next week's trivia.
No,
Yeah.
I did not do that.
I did not do that either.
Get hype.
All right.